Okay, welcome to the August edition of LoopBack Maintainers call. Here we are. What are we talking about?
Great. Hi, Rifa. How are you?
I think you're on mute, sir. We cannot hear you.
Rifa, you're muted, or something's wrong with your mic? We cannot hear you. No puedo escucharte.
Rifa. Is Rifa learning Spanish too?
Hope so.
No. Able to hear me fine?
Yes.
Oh. Now you're in. Excellent.
Yeah, okay, so maybe I can give a little bit updates on where we're at on the onboarding, and thanks everyone for helping in cleaning up some of the stuff. Let me share my screen. So this is the GitHub issue that Jory from the OpenJS Foundation has created for us, and so I've been sort of keeping track of where we are, and so maybe I can go through from like one by one. So in terms of the adopting the code of conduct, I think we are fine with using the contributor covenant that Rifa like updated for us some time ago. I think the one last thing left is before, like currently, if you go to the LoopBack Next repo, it is if there's any reporting or escalation path, then it is going to an IBM email address. And so I'm trying to get an OpenJS Foundation affiliated email address so that we can update that, like instead of using the IBM account, and so that we can have the technical steering committee to have access to that account. I don't know how to do it yet, but we'll one step at a time, and once we'll get the email address, and I'm pretty sure that they will have some instruction for us. Let me see. Yeah, so I think it's pretty much like the first two items over there. I'm still trying to follow up with with Jory. And then the next one is the domain, the list of domains. So I think we're using, so we only have loopback.io. So we eventually will pass it to the OpenJS Foundation. I think there's no blocker to pursue it. Maybe I should kick that off. And then the next one is to identify and document and core project infrastructure. We do have some, and we're using Travis and Avair for most of it, and also GitHub Actions. I think Raymond has one of the sub-related tests using his IBM Cloud accounts, and then I also have the search function for the documentation is also using my own IBM Cloud account as well. And I have sort of documented it in the Google Docs that I share with some of you already. So if you could take a look, then that will be good to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And by the way, if you have any questions or anything, any comment, please interrupt me.
With the infrastructure, for example, we have seen, or I have seen that for certain tests we have services that are hosted at IBM also, especially for example for the subcalculator. We have a web service that that is hosted somewhere. Is that part of that? Is to document that kind of infrastructure?
Yeah, well, actually, I can share that. Let me stop sharing first.
I
Sorry.
think there is a sub-service hanging around there.
Yeah, so there is a service that is using Raymond's IBM Cloud account. And this one is actually using my IBM Cloud account.
Okay.
Anything else? I think those are sort of everyone can access it.
There is one for, I think there are examples that are using the geolocation to address or some kind of service like that from Google. Probably that's linked to an account also. Address to location or location to address, more or less. There are examples there.
Was it a free and open one, open API? Free API?
It is, but maybe it's linked to something, right? Not sure if it's really quite open.
That's it's one of the tutorials, right? It's a SOAP calculator API.
Mm-hmm.
Or
The
something
subcalculator is this one. Well, maybe I should do this one.
The geolocation is different.
The geolocation, are we using a particular person's account?
I think it's a third-party open API for testing.
Right.
That's what anyone to use, right?
That's how I remember too as well.
For the sub-service, maybe we can put Raymond's sub-server in a container so that the CDI can pick it up or speed it up and then link to it. It's just for the test at some point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As for Watson, I'm not sure if they provide sandboxes for testing.
May not. Well, I don't know. When we were looking at it at the very first time, and we're thinking there are some other search mechanism in the form of documentation that we could adopt as well. So, but for now, I think like as part of the onboarding, I think we're okay. It doesn't need to be like
Okay.
all accessible to everyone, because I don't know how I can move that out to be honest. Yeah, so okay, so let me write it down for the SOAP. I remember Raymond had a container create a container, a Docker file at some point, but it might be for another purpose. Anyway, so I think as a part of the onboarding task, we are good. Like to keep that like not too generic, like even though it's using our personal accounts. But I think eventually we should find a way how to move away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, Diana, for the infrastructure documentation, that's a private document.
I think I added you, Raymond, and Mario.
Which email was it being used?
Let me see.
I don't think I have access to it.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Isn't maybe that's because it's new? It's you just created, right?
No, I created maybe 2 weeks ago, more than 2 weeks ago. Well, 2-3 weeks ago at least. Because I cannot find Francesco's email. Let me do it after the meeting.
Okay, I'll just drop my email. I'll just DM you my email just so that you can work on it after the meeting then.
Okay. Okay, it's good that you let me know. Otherwise, I will assume you have access. Okay,
Uh,
cool. Yeah. So for the next one, I think we are using DCO for all of them. I think probably we probably needs to. Well, last time I checked, I think we are all using DCO or CLA. For some of the older one, we might still be using CLA, but I think I probably need to double check. Or like from the lists that we listed on the repo that we are migrating to the new location, we should, like, whoever is taking after the particular repo, then they can take a look at us as well. But the DCO is enabled at the org, the GitHub org level, then all the repos should be able to access it.
So for the DCO, so just a quick tangent, because some of the repo licenses historically are under the Artistic 2.0 license. So are there any plans to shift it over to MIT? I think Mario brought it up a while back, just a short stint. Because with DCO, if I understood correctly, is that we cannot change the license after we change the DCO, and then we start having committers from outside using the DCO.
I see.
Because
That's a
the
good.
copyright license doesn't get transferred to us.
I see. Probably I probably need to check with OpenJS Foundation if they have any advice for us. A long time ago, I think when I first joined the team, I also noticed there's some inconsistency in the use of license, but I think I was sort of told that they are similar enough. But I think we should also make it consistent as well, if possible.
Yeah, I think if we adopt MIT in all the repos, that would be fine. But it would be great to see OpenJS Foundation comments on that, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then the next one about the governance, we also have that for the loopback next repo, not all the repos. I'm also waiting for so currently it's the same thing. Any of the escalation path is going to an IBM email address. So I'm still waiting for the OpenJS Foundation affiliated email so that we can have that before adding to all the repos we have, because we probably don't want to do it for the second time. Like, yeah, so once we have everything, then I think we can get to update or add that file to the different repos.
Diana, the email address that you're referring to from OpenJS Foundation, is it related to the GitHub repository, and or where it should be used, that address? It's just one address for the whole project?
So yeah, so for example, okay, let me bring that up. So for example, we have the code of conducts. Right now, I think if there's somebody violating it, oh, actually, it's not here.
I think it's
Oh, it's
just
here.
like, yeah, VHSL.
Yeah, here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so and they can report to us. So currently it's a IBM email address.
Okay.
So we want to change that to the OpenJS Foundation
Okay,
affiliated
I
one.
understand now.
Yeah, yeah. So
For
I think
communication, basically, just for communication from the users to the project, basically, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
All right.
So I think not all the repo has this file, but I would rather we wait for the new email address before adding it to other repos. Otherwise, we'll need
All right.
to do the changes again.
Yeah. Well, While we're on the topic of email addresses, right? The email address is also being used for the security policy as well. So is that an area that we also need to work with the OpenJS Foundation to create a security?
I think when we had the discussion with Jory last time, we'll have two. Like one is for the governance side of things, and the other is the security side of things. It might eventually go to the same group of people, which I'm thinking is the TSC. But it will be good to have that separate.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm basically waiting for that to email address. Maybe I should follow up again.
All right. So once we get that address, probably we can fine tune this or replicate this code of conduct to all the repos.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And then this one, actually, I'm not sure what it is. I haven't taken a look at it. So maybe we can.
The charter.
Yeah.
My understanding is just what the scope of the TSC is, right? So who are the members and what do we do as the TSC for the project?
I see. I see. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's the governance kind of.
Maybe the maintainers as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So if anyone is interested in take a first stab at it, and feel free. So the next one is about the legal copyright notice. So I
I think
think
this one you're waiting to hear back from OpenJS and IBM as well, right?
yeah. So so I got the well. I think the next step for me is to also follow the OpenJS Foundation, because from my understanding is currently the copyright is with IBM, right? And then what by the information I got from the IBM side is we can do, say, the copyright IBM and loopback contributors, but we cannot take it out. Like for the old files, for the existing files, we cannot take it out because it's already there, and we can add the loopback contributors, but we cannot take out IBM. But for the new files, we can just say like copyrights, like contributors to loopback. I think it is similar to what Joyent, like for the Note one, is doing. So we can follow a similar path, but then that's something I also need to confirm with the OpenJS Foundation before I can have a more a better conclusion on that. But from the IBM part of it, it's like they're good with the copyright IBM plus the contributors.
Okay. I think that's kind of what's adopted by you mentioned Joynet and also Express.js, right? They incorporate these. I'm wondering how the LB4 CLI, if it could handle that kind of different copyright headers.
That's right. That's a good point. Yeah, we'll find out a solution. Okay, the next one I haven't done anything yet. I think this one is to add the OpenJS footer to our website. I was looking at it like for example for Node-RED and for other part of for other project that is part of the OpenJS Foundation. I think they have different templates. Well, they have a different content. So I looked at this one, and then maybe Fastify as well. I forgot which one actually. So if also anyone interested to take a look at it, and feel free. And so for this one, so I think this is the same, like similar, along the same line, to add the OpenJS affiliation to the to our project website.
Yeah.
Um,
That's just to update the loopback IO, right?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But when we did our website, we did it in a very quick way. So supposedly, like, we have multiple pages, right, for loopback.io, and those are each of them, like, say, for example, for getting started. So we have, it looks the same, but actually it is not coming from the template. So like,
Okay.
if we want to change it, then we need to change it to all the
In
pages.
different places. Yeah.
Yeah, or you can sort of rework the website to have like this is coming from a template. So that's something to be aware of if you're working on it.
All right.
So there are multiple pages that we need to change.
One question is before you go, like for example, we can start actually doing the changes right now if we would like to, right? To the pages on the website. So in reality, this doesn't have to come up with this in the same order that we are reviewing.
Yeah, no, it isn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And this one, I added the artwork to the OpenJS Foundation repo, somewhere in here in the project. So I added the back in here. So it has the artwork that we have. So
Is that merged already?
Yes, it's merged already.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this one is needed for another thing, so that's why I need to merge it. Oh yeah, the CPC repo README. So this is also done. Maybe I should check it. Oh, I don't have the right to do it. Yeah, so I added. Oh, this one is not merged. It.
I think it's merged already. It's in the main branch.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So it's in here. So we have that covered. Let me see the trademark. So this one I haven't. Is the to do is on me. I need to coordinate this from both sides, from the IBM side and also the OpenJS Foundation side. And then the crowdfunding, we're not doing it, so it's not applicable. Identify individuals to join the CPC. The CPC is the cross project council. I think we haven't really talked about it, and if anyone is interested, I think we can contact the OpenJS Foundation on that. I think they have they try to have a representative from each of the projects, but it's not mandatory. It's not a requirement for us to join. But if we can join, then that would be good. The next thing is to document the foundation, like the contacts. I try to write up whatever I know about the social media and all those things. It's also actually part of the Google folder that I shared. That probably won't share in here. I cannot find it here too. So I try to list out who has the access. I think mainly for the social media ones, Raymond and I have it, and Yapa also has the access to the Google one, so that you can upload the recording of our meetings. The infrastructure we talked about, it's up there, and then the governance one is. I'm thinking maybe the TSC would be the first of contact. What do you think?
Yeah. For the legal government's help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the security policy, like the code of conduct, we have that for loopback next repo. But but this one also report to an IBM email address. So we need to have changed that. Yes, so I think there are things that are ongoing, and once we have the email address, I think we can get a lot of them completed. I'll see if I can set a time with Jory, and if anyone interested, then I can invite them as well. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much my update. And thanks everyone for contributing to it and helping out on this task.
Yeah, I think especially for the loopback IO pages, I think we can refactor it to have a common footer, for example, but we have to take a look at the code, right? How it's structured first.
Yeah, when we first do it, there are not many pages, and it's like, oh, maybe it's easier to just do the simple way, and then but then it get added more and more, and then so yeah, that's something we would love to do, but never get a chance.
Exactly. Yep. And for the npm publishing, yeah, everybody has two-factor already. Rifa, you have two-factor enabled to your user. I remember.
Yes, I'm not sure if Diana has already went ahead and enabled the option for the publishing. Do you have required MFA for all this? But
I might
yeah,
have. I forgot.
I mean, we can go through it again. I can go through it sometime once I have time to look through it. But npm, there's the option to actually enforce two-factor authentication for each package. But because we have a lot of packages, manually checking is quite tedious, I'm sure. I've been trying to find out how we could like maybe use GitHub Actions to like just, periodically check it and make sure it's always set. But then it doesn't seem like npm CLI has any easy way of doing that. They have a way to like set it, but then they don't have a way to like retrieve it. So yeah, maybe that's enough. We could try doing something like that for to enforce it.
I think maybe the new package that we're going to create in the future, then we probably need to check it. Otherwise, like I think we're not going to change that settings, right? So it might not be too bad if we. I vaguely remember because it's been many weeks that I looked at it, and I vaguely remember I enabled it for all, but I just need to double check. Yeah.
Yeah, because I did look through some of it and I noticed that it did change over to enable MFA. So I think you did at least change quite a few of them already.
Okay. Hey, Raymond.
Raymond just joined.
Sorry, guys. For some reason, the meeting invite is not on my calendar, and I only saw that from the Slack channel this morning. Sorry, I just joined late, but I do have like 20 minutes or so here to catch up. And recently, I have been really busy internally, so that's why I'm less active on the LoopBack side. I think all of you are doing a great job there to move things forward. So hopefully I will have some bandwidth to work with you guys.
That's great. Yeah. Before you joined, we were going through the OpenJS Foundation onboarding checklist. I think we're making some good progress there, and so I think the next step is to get the OpenJS Foundation affiliated email so that we can finalize the code of conduct and like governance, like those MD files updated for Loopback Next, and then so that we can replicate it for other repos.
That sounds good. And probably the main with me also need to have a little bit, refreshment to show that OpenJS Foundation incubation project as well.
That's a good idea. It's not part of the onboarding checklist, but maybe we should do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. So that's it from me.
Yep.
So,
Just want to add something for the code contribution. I'm working right now to replace from the loopback REST the request package to access, right? It's kind of it's being challenging right now, but I am more or less moving forward with that, right? I'm gonna publish the next week a whip pull request so that we can start looking at. But I think that should be a great move. And I didn't know about the access, but Diana told me a long time that it was the one that was chosen to replace the request package, right? So any advice will be appreciated. I'm just looking at the loopback REST connector right now, uh, but I'm not
So
sure where else should I be.
yeah, so that's a really interesting and a tricky situation because one hand, the version of request actually works well, and we assume the customization, like say how people can provide options for the for the request package will be automatically propagate into the API call, like give that kind of advanced features, like they want to control the behavior of that particular HTTP client, they can do that.
Mhm.
And really, the deprecation is just a maintainer decide not to maintain it anymore. It's not, it's not working or anything. So, and I also figured out migrating from one HTTP client to another one, even though there are many different choices, but
Mhm.
none of them seems to be so straightforward because how they handle the HTTP request and response and how they get the the JSON data or whatever data coming back from the body, it's so different. So
Mhm.
I personally find it's a little bit tricky, and I don't know, like between fetch, Axial, or like the so-called like a God library from one of the popular open source guys. Like they all have like pros and cons. So it's and when I was inside IBM and when we talked about what's the recommendation we have, it was quite a challenge. So
Mhm.
and to me, for the REST connector, uh, like if we decide to refresh that, as long as we get all the functionality going, but I think it's still going to be a breaking change because the configuration data model is going to be different, right? Because
Mhm.
each of the HTTP client have their own different options. So
Mhm.
that's going to be breaking anyway. So like personally, I would a little bit hesitant to touch that. And of course, like we can have a breaking change being released on a new major. Um, yeah, so it's a little bit hot potato.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so
it's not easy to decide one way or the other.
yeah, I think it's maybe I can give some perspective. And I think unless if there's like some important features that are missing in the request package, or there's like a vulnerability in a upstream dependency or in the package itself, I think it's there would need to be some kind of good justification for switching that dependency. Like
Yeah.
what I hope to when replacing the request package, right?
Yeah, especially it's not possible to be fully backward compatible. And the configuration option could be dramatically different. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to go there. And actually, the module works well for whatever who use it. Right? But for other package like NAS involved. Like for example, the Open API one, that's good because we use the fetch library, which is more consistent with the browser, and that's make the library also useful inside the browser as well. So that's a different way to look at it.
Yeah. Why? What was the main reason to switch to Axios, for example, in other packages as opposed to GAT, for example?
Yeah, that's just the evaluation at that point in time. Like, we have a few different choices, and it's hard to tell which one is the best. And just happened to be that package was from Facebook. Was kind of popular, but it works, but it's still missing some features. When I try to migrate that for certain package, I run into quite a bit of trouble there to get things working. So the API is not super intuitive, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. What I was thinking about was to more or less try to introduce the change, but without too much breaking change in terms of the templating and all that. Trying to figure out how we can make it compatible with the underlying Axios library. I think but that's tricky. That's why I wanted to hear you guys advice on that. If we really need to change that right, because every time we just install that, it complains about it or just warns about the deprecation, and at some point we don't start, then we can't find another hurdle in the midterm, for example, with that package.
Yeah. So as far as I know, there's a new HTTP client coming to the Node library. It's called U something.
I think they just included it in the latest release.
Oh, okay. It's
Yeah,
called like UDC or
yeah, Undici or something.
Odishi.
Yeah. That actually, I have been testing that, and it propagates the error. That is something that the reason why, for example, Access was selected. So propagates the error very well, and it's internally in Node. But what I like from that package is that is really a package that you can install. But I haven't tested in previous versions of Node. Just that can be also a candidate, right?
Yeah,
See the
and that one
compatibility.
is very performing as now as we can tell. Yeah,
Yeah, it
so
tops
maybe that's
Access. Mhm.
yeah. That could be a good candidate. And hopefully they have reasonable APIs. And by just looking at, it seems to be reasonable. Of course, like it might be missing some of the it's a level like you have the raw HTTP support, but for certain things like the content type negotiation, like the security perspective, and some other things might still depend on the high level library built on top of this one.
Yeah. So I'm not 100% familiar with the loopback REST connector. If it doesn't like expose the request package like as is, I think, and if you're able to like bring the benefits of like a more performance dependency, then I think it might be worth changing. I think just
I
a bit.
think we try to minimize the exposure, but for the like advanced customization of the HTTP client library, we still depend on the options supported by the request library. That's the only place. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this. I mean, the question will become like, do we want to give the users a choice on that, right? To pick their client library, but obviously that adds more complexity to the connector as is.
Yeah, I think I'm fine. Like for example, we can even release a new module called like REST HTTP. Instead of call REST connector, we can just call HTTP connector, right? and then we can have breaking chains under that new connector that utilize a very different HTTP client library. Right? I think that could be a good compromise. Like we don't want to mess around with the existing REST connector itself, but introduce a similar connector. So that's just how I did for the Open API connector. So Open API Connect took a very different path. Like the REST connector is more like a template driven, like the translation of the REST API into JavaScript function calls, right? But the Open API connector is really reading the Open API spec and infer the client methods and make a client method talking to HTTP without knowing HTTP. Okay, but for this new HTTP connector, we can use a different library and we decide which one would be the best.
Yeah, actually, Rifa, with the current Open API connector, you can build your own, for example, HTTP client and pass it over. Like, for example, you can have Undici to finally make the request, which is totally different, right? As Raymond explained for the REST connector. That's the challenging part, right, in the REST connector. But I think I like Undici. That's why I remember that a couple of months ago I asked the question Undici or Axios or something, and somehow the project actually chose Axios, right? That's why I started looking at how we can make that change. But
Yeah,
Undici really tops it in terms of
yeah.
performance.
So maybe they're sitting at like different levels. Like Undici probably it's a little bit lower level than Axiom. But I could be wrong. I didn't have a chance to try that thing out. But now I think it's in its way to coming to the node core itself, right? Or is
Yeah.
that part of node 16 already?
Yeah, but I think it's a separate package that you can
Install on the side.
yeah, correct, exactly. But I
Okay.
haven't tested the compatibilities, right, yet.
Okay.
But that's just some. However, it has more similarities to request than Access, for example. So
Okay. That's
probably
good
probably
actually.
the changes that will help, right?
Yeah. There's a TypeScript API declaration
Mhm.
there, so we can check it out and then see if that
Yep.
fits our, requirement. Yeah.
We can actually create a whip in with a POC, right? Just to see
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
spike just to see if it behaves very well.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Also, on another note, I wanted to create the hooks for the repository in the last conversation I just mentioned it, and I could actually added a contract, a simple class, and this class actually uses the internal emitter and provides a specific events that. So once you have this event list, then it's really hook up to the repository. But I'm not using the observer event from the data source. So I'm using like a regular repository class, uh, and I will share that also probably next week. I have been very busy also on this side, but we wanted to provide triggers at the repository level without touching the data source. So I ended up with this website where I saw this example, and I think that would be great also, because it exposes the events the clients can subscribe to, and with the contract, right? It's a TypeScript class, so the repository class actually not only extends the CRUD repository, but also um, extends it to emit events, right? So
Yeah.
that's the only thing uh, we were looking at, uh, because we wanted to document very well certain triggers. So those are the two things that I am playing around, right? The REST connector replacement and these triggers. I also found one of the users of the loopback 4 actually plays an issue regarding an option. For example, whenever you place the option aware scope in the model, somehow there was a code that initially replaced that where scope property in the model with the body, for example, in the post. We should not actually be. I'm just trying to figure out what was the purpose for it. Initially, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, that scope where clause in the model could be turned off by specifying, for example, where no replacement, for example, right in the post, meaning that that model should not actually be treated in the way that in the post event, for example, or in any operation, the body should not change, for example, the scope where. Like, for example, we specified the scope where deleted equals to false, for example, right? Or deleted semicolon false. That is the scope of the where clause that whenever I retrieve the information, I want to execute it. But whenever we do a post into that, let's say that you are adding a new record and specify just a description, right? A very simple model. This feature actually changes the deleted semicolon files to the post also. So it just adds it, right? Um, so somehow, more or less, it was replacing the where properties in the body with no reason. And I remember that I saw that 4 years ago when the code was performed in the juggler bridge or in the data source juggler, um, this had a property to turn it off, this behavior. But later, 2 years afterwards, it was replaced, right? So the use case for the user was very simple, right? That he wanted to more or less have this flag in the work clause, but without actually
Yeah,
making this.
yeah. If I remember correctly, now we have different methods for the different behavior. So we have replace by ID versus update by ID or patch by ID. I think patch by ID and update by ID it's really patching, and the replace by ID is completely replace the record. So I think we in the repository, at least for the ones support by Juggler, we should support two different behaviors by different methods now. Maybe
Yeah,
the guy is calling the wrong method.
no, the guy was calling the create method, and the problem is that at the juggler side, at that point we cannot actually see the operation that was basically initiated at that level, right? So it's just a function that what it takes is the settings in the model. It finds a word, and then it just grabs all the properties in the word and
Oh,
replace it in the
so
body. So
yeah, I think you were talking about the scope, like the scopes for the model, meaning
yeah,
we
the
have
properties.
a set of predefined values that will be always enforced for read and write, right? So meaning like, hey, I have this internal flag, and if you have that default scope, then no matter if you write or you read, that flag should be honored. Yeah, maybe I don't know. I'm not familiar with that particular bug or issue. Maybe somewhat that default scope is not enforced there by the juggler.
Yeah, I will share with you probably later today because I'm familiar with this code because I was reviewing and it didn't really make sense that part. So that change was introduced 4 years ago and then was replaced 2 years ago, right? So the original developer actually took these settings defined in the model and force replace whatever is coming in the body, for example, but at the juggler side. So at that point, we don't know the operation that was actually being called, for example. But I will share with you more details. Probably we can we can change that behavior or put the flag to turn it off whenever the developer doesn't want that to actually replace a create method, for
Sure. Like
example.
if you share that issue, I can chime in with some opinions there.
Yeah, I will. Don't worry.
Okay.
All right. That's
Okay, if it's all right, I would like to actually go back to a bit discussion earlier, which is on. I think you mentioned you were working on this new repository, right, with the events handler and whatnot.
correct.
Yeah. So, does it make sense to put it on the repository, or or should the data source be the one that actually triggers these kind of things, right? Because
Yeah, the current. Remember that currently. Yeah, sorry, you break. I didn't hear the last
sorry.
part.
Yeah. So because the data source is the one that kind of has to manage the read and writing, do you think it makes more sense to put it on the data source itself, or
Yeah, but remember that we place the code in the data source, yes, but at the design level, we do have repositories that more or less is an abstract concept at this point, but that is the pattern, right? So it is the repository, the one that actually makes the create that exposes these methods to the developer. For example, the find, the create, and all that, right? Internally, of course, it's forwarding those to the data source juggler bridge, for example, but it is the repository. Currently, because of the loopback tree, all these events were being raised by the data source, like like the before write or before update things like that, right?
yeah,
And now we have a method called from entity um, or to entity. We need to actually add the companion method, which is the from entity. I'm not remember which one is it right now, right? From entity or to entity, but we need to write the other one, the counterpart, to actually have it at the repository level. And this, if I don't recall bad, then it is at the repository level, right? But but the pattern for the before and after update, if those methods are exposed by the repository, should not be well to have it at the repository level, the before and after event for each of these methods. What do you think, guys?
that's yeah. Mm, okay, because I mean, I think we can discuss offline in more detail, like implementation wise. I'm just raising a potential concern because, like, the reading and writing of the models is an implementation detail of the data source. So I'm just thinking maybe there may be a case scenario where the data source has some funky functions that or behavior that might trigger read or write in a way that the repository may not be able to expect or detect. So I mean, we can still expose it on the repository, just that the repository should also maybe listen to from the data source as well, similar to loopback tree. But instead of just the loopback for users interacting directly with the data source, they would instead interact through the abstraction layer that the repository provides.
But let's see that, for example, you have two repositories, right, with two models, and they are really linked, for example, to the same data source. And you want, for example, to catch up events before create, to add certain properties only to one of the repositories, for example. So you don't want, you for sure, you don't want that at the model level. Let's say that
Yeah.
internally it is the same table, the same database table. That means that the data source is just one, and then you have the same table, but at the loopback point, you have two models, and or one model with two repositories, for example. But then you just want, for example, only one repository to actually be triggering your event. Um, and then you can have a code outside of the repository. That's the purpose of it, as a service where you receive the before and after image of the record, and you just call the next, and then you can just have it like a decorator for your service. That means that decorator is saying that you are an event handler for that repository specific, for example, and you have two repositories attached to it, right? The problem is that you can have more than one repository linked to the same model and to the same data source, right? and to which you will be actually linking that event. If you put it at the data source level, then your universe is higher, right? Not granular, for example. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know. I'm
point.
not.
Yeah.
Now I am not 100% sure, Rifa, you know.
Yeah, but I think you make a good point, Mario. Yeah, I agree that it makes sense where you want to have that segmentation between repositories that share a common data source.
Mhm.
I do look forward to seeing the like the proof of concept code or maybe a minimum viable product, so I can
Yeah.
see how you're currently implementing it, and I can discuss further from there.
Yeah, we more or less have a proof of concept, right? Hard coding certain things, but what I want right now is to put the decorator so that you can interact with it. Yeah, hopefully very soon you will see it, right?
For the decorators, sorry for dragging a bit more, but for the decorators, it's for like event attaching to the event, right?
Correct, exactly.
Does do you have like intentions to abstract that to a more generic concept, like you can listen to events from other parts of Loopback 4?
Well, because it's using the emitter, yes, it's more or less like yeah, universal, right?
Oh, okay.
But right now, for example, as right now, the only good contract that we are imposing in the repository is the events. For example, by placing this class that exposes a specific events, you are restricting particularly to that repository class those events, right? So the contract is very well established. For example, to what events you can be contributing or listening to.
Okay. I think it sounds quite interesting, so I look forward to seeing the code itself, and then maybe we can work something out from there.
Yeah, great. Excellent. That's all for me.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else from me as well.
All right. We cannot see you more, but good to have you here with us.
I
So,
didn't hear.
Yes. Hi, yep. Yeah, sorry, man. I'm in bed lighting. It's a little bit late this side, but I figured, let me just trade in and listen in for today. It's good to see everyone.
Okay. Take care, guys. Thank you, Diana,
Okay.
for your hard work. Take care.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, everyone. Thank
all
you.
right. Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.